We're not the suits that talk football. We're the dudes that know football. And you've just crossed over into the trend zone. Dave here with Casey, and we are the football dudes. Are you ready, brother?
I am.
All right. Next up, the trend zone. It is November 27th, and we're coming at you from Los Angeles, California. It is a chilly 60 degrees here in Santa Monica, scattered showers, but definitely not too bad. Not too bad at
Yeah,
all.
not too bad. We've got a lot to be thankful for, weather included.
That's right. In today's episode, we'll talk about the new home for an old dime bag, a flex alert, coaching hot seats, the injury bug, and of course, all of the awesome games coming up this week in the NFL. But before we get to all that, Casey, you cannot take a trip into the trend zone without a couple of tasty nugs. What do you got for the people?
Oh, I got 8 nugs, baby, because in
Huh?
week 12, 8 games worth and one score. That's 8 points in the fourth quarter, and 6 games were decided by 8 or fewer points, including 3 teams. The Brownies, the Chefs, and the Vikings recorded a game winning score in the final minute of the
Wow.
fourth quarter or in overtime. So far this season, Dave, 83 games have been decided by 6 or fewer points. That's the most ever through 12 weeks in NFL history. It's beautiful. It's competitive. It comes down to the live wire.
Yes, it does, man. Some of the games this last weekend were berserker at the end. I'll tell you what, it is a beautiful thing. All right, folks, Trend Zone is available for subscription on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Go ahead and subscribe and download now. All right, moving it into the top trending story. Casey, Giants release dime bag Danny Jones. What's the deal with that?
Wait a minute. So you're telling me that they let Saquon walk and franchised Daniel Jones, gave
Yeah,
him all that money, and now they just cut him?
they just cut him loose, didn't they?
Wow. Yeah. They had set him down because they didn't want to risk that injury, and then they decided to let him walk. So, uh, Dimebag cleared through waivers, and now he is the new man on the Minnesota Vikings. The Giants will have to carry a bunch of that dead money, but the Vikings got a little break, didn't pay that much. He's going to start on the practice squad, and he will be the backup there. It's probably just a rental for the end of the season, with obviously JJ McCarthy in line to come back next year. But Sam Darnold, he might be bouncing with a new contract too, as well as he's played. So maybe there will be some longevity there. But DJ's starting days might be over, probably most likely.
Well, we'll see. Interestingly, the only quarterback under contract next year for the Vikings is JJ McCarthy. So uh, this just brings another guy into the mix
Yeah.
that has made a lot of money. So maybe he's willing to play for a really good coach. And we've seen this story with Sam Darnold. You play for a good coach, and you suddenly look a little bit better. The Kevin O'Connell experience has been awesome for Sam
Mm-hmm.
Darnold after he just got coached by the 49ers. So um, you never know. There could be a spot there long term on that roster for him.
Yeah,
Maybe obviously in support of McCarthy in the future. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out.
most definitely.
All right, Shaq Barrett, Casey ends his retirement. Is this a big deal? Are we talking about anything special here?
We'll see. I mean, the Dolphins are trying to flip it and get back into playoff
Mm-hmm.
contention. He did sign a 1 year, $9 million with them before retiring. He decided that he was done, and now he's deciding that he wants to come back and play a little bit. Dolphins have been banged up. Bradley Chubb's on PUP, Jalen Phillips on IR, Chop Robinson, and Ogba all off right now, not playing, so they can definitely use a body. Shaq had it early, obviously winding down to the end of his career, but if they can make a playoff push, now towards the end of the season, it's a little more condensed. It's much more doable. Yeah, he's probably got something left in the tank.
Yeah, this isn't the first guy that got sick of sitting around and got some, little itchy to go back out on the field
Mhm.
and see if he still had it, right? Come on.
Yeah, and it's only been a half season, so it's not been like a long wait. So he'll get back out there and
And
see what he can
the
do.
Finns are kind of trending in the right direction right now. So who knows how that goes. Okay, Casey, moving on. It is the first ever flexed Thursday night football game. It is week 16.
Yeah, and it's our Los Angeles Chargers taking on those Denver Broncos that did move into Thursday night in Week 16, kicking off from the SoFi on a Thursday night special there. That's on the 19th. And the Chargers, how many primetime games is this now for them?
Yeah, they've added a handful of them. They started the season with two prime timers that were a Monday nighter and the one Monday night that was
Mhm.
buried on ESPN Plus. So
Yeah, so this is
really,
our second flex game, Thursday and the Sunday. So
yeah,
Harbaugh is good television business, man. And the
it's
Chargers are
yeah,
to these Broncos, so
yes,
they are both jockeying for one of those wild card spots. So this is going to be a big time game, and it's nice to have meaningful football being played at the SoFi this late in the season.
no doubt about it. And that price of that ticket just went up a little bit since it's not crowded on a 1 o'clock on a Sunday. Instead, it's a standalone game on prime time. So it's pretty sweet for tickets holders for the Chargers.
Yeah, Bo Nix sells ticks.
There you go. Yeah, and those Broncos are playing good, so it should be a really good football game. All right, Casey. Bad news for the Raiders.
Yeah, Gardner Minshew, he's done for the season with the shoulder, their collarbone right there. So they're bringing back Aiden O'Connell. No problem, Bob. Coming off the bench, you got the Kansas City Chiefs coming to town on a short week. So you better figure it out. O'Connell had the job for a little while and just didn't play well enough to maintain it. He had the little the hand Sergeant Hulka going there, but apparently he's going to be okay. So
Well, and they said if he can't grip the ball, they were still going to see. Then it would be Desmond Ritter
oof.
in a pinch there, who did play a bit, obviously last week when Minshew went out. But yeah, so O'Connell, I guess if he's good to go, uh, he's the man there. But whew,
Yeah, you know, Pierce and the players don't want to lose any of the games organizational wise.
yeah,
They would love to be sitting at that top pick and have their choice of the quarterbacks coming out or even Travis Hunter. So that is still TBD. A lot of
yeah.
football left to be
More on
played, but
that later when I
yeah.
discuss their matchup this week. All right, Casey, Washington, uh, and their running back scenario, a little banged up.
Yeah, Robinson went out early in that game against the Cowboys. Then Eckler went out on the kickoff at the very end of that thing. If Wanye Thomas just takes a knee, that kickoff doesn't ever happen, but he got lit up. It was a brutal hit. So hopefully he'll be okay. I know he's had some concussion problems in the past. Maybe they're starting to stack. So hopefully Eckler is going to be okay. Your guy Dobbins, he had a sprained MCL. He's going to miss at least the game against the Falcons.
Yeah.
So you got a lot of youth there. I'm sure we're going to get into that as well, and the Gus Bus as well. Ravens, Charlie Kohler, he's going to miss at least 4 weeks, dude. That's brutality, but at least
Mhm.
they have Likely and Andrews in front of him. And oh, the Chiefs, anti-injury news. They
Mhm.
should have Isaiah Pacheco back for this one. He's missed
Good
9
news.
games
Yeah.
and just in time for the Raider game on Friday.
All right. Also, Charles Omenihu, who has been on PUP all season for the Chiefs, is scheduled to be coming back as well. So Chiefs getting healthy just in time for the Raider game, right on Black Friday. All right, Casey. We talked about it briefly last week. We started our coaching hot seats, even though they had already fired Robert Sala. We were in time, I think, to preview the potential firing of Dennis Allen. He's gone too. Other guys on the hot seat. Who do you think's on the hottest seat right now?
Well, it wouldn't be crazy to take this guy off of the list and the potential of a new contract. Jarrett came out this week after the great performance by the Cowboys. Debatable, great, but it was a win. He said an
Yep.
extension for McCarthy would not be crazy.
Mm.
So we'll see about that, but we're going to go ahead and keep it in the division. Brian Dable's seat might be heating up just a little bit there. Had the
Yeah.
first season that looked like he was turning them around, and he didn't stop at 180. He went ahead and did the full 360, and they're back to being the Giants. So tons of dysfunction there, keeping dime bag, letting go of Saquon, and now letting go of dime bag as well. I don't know if that's Dabo's fault, but someone's got to take the fall for it. So it might be him. And about 8 jobs open up every year. We obviously know the Saints and the Jets are going to have that. Probably the Bears too. We talked about Floozy last week. Probably the Jags. So
Yeah.
by a process of elimination, there's going to be at least four more coaches that will be looking for jobs.
Yeah, in the just getting warm, Antonio Pierce, maybe a one and done there, or one and a half and done in Raiderville, if he can't get something out of this squad for the remaining portion of the season.
Remember when Lovey Smith won that last game for the Texans on
Yes.
his way out the door, and it pissed him off? I could see Pierce doing something like that on the way and finding a way to get a Raider win when they absolutely don't need it, screwing up that draft pick. And then
That's
he says
right.
deuces to that organization. But like we said last week, Tom Brady's coming in. How much say is he going to have in the organization? But when Tom Brady speaks, people listen because the dude has been a winner everywhere he's gone. So
Yep.
it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds in the future.
All right, Casey, on to the fantasy segment. Total Fantasy Domination. These are the fantasy leaders for this week. Who do you got?
Yeah, how about Tua, baby, getting it done for the Green Bud Packers and those Miami Dolphins? Over 300 yards and 4 passing touchdowns last week. Pretty good.
Yeah, how about Saquon Barkley at running
Again?
back? Yeah, this guy was nuts, man, the last
Oh,
couple of weeks. But last week it was 255 rushing yards, 2 rush TDs, 47 receiving yards. Outstanding, Saquon.
yeah.
In the
How
MVP category now.
Yeah, we got to talk about that. And Jordan Addison from the Lightning Strikes and the Minnesota Vikings. Not catching those from dime bags. It's still Sam Darnold there, but 162 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown.
From my bench. Um,
Oh, I
uh,
got one of those.
Now about tight end Noah Gray. He is a free agent there, but obviously the Chiefs like him. 66 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns for Noah Gray. Casey, fantasy go backs of the week where we go back and we discussed how we could have better coached up our fantasy squads. Do you got any fantasy go backs from last week?
Dave, I've been just a POS this year when it comes to fantasy. So distracted that I got caught on Thursday not realizing my Alvin Kamara was on a bye week. I've had
Ouch.
Chubb sitting on my bench all freaking year, getting healthy. He's off a pup. This was the week I could have used him. Got to Thursday before I looked at my lineup, making rookie mistakes left and right this season, Dave. I deserve to lose for that. But Chubb was on the bench with his 18 points. I still absolutely destroyed Los Burrows Locos. But, Dave, the difference between Chubb and Rico Dowdle was 11 points. And that 11 points would have put me in first place in the money. Not having those points put me out of the money.
Oof, brutal. Well, I did just mention that I benched Addison for some idiotic reason. Obviously, my fantasy season has been less than fantastic. Um, I had Cup, Jennings, and Neighbors in. Jennings got me a 4, and of course, Addison got me a 22.2. So that's an 18.2 uh, difference. However, if I add that to my score, I wouldn't. I would have lost instead by 19, uh, almost 19 points. I would have lost by like less than 1 point. So
Oh, it's better to
it would have been
lose
more
by yeah, yeah,
excruciating.
yeah. Football dudes are struggling in fantasy this year,
I'm
dude.
still ranked 12th, where I've been ever since I lost to the 12th guy when I was 11th.
Oh, well, at least we have the loser bowl coming up, so still got a chance to cash out in
Yeah,
this league.
that's right. The consolation playoffs is where I'm headed as
Mhm.
the
I'll see you
sixth
there.
seed.
I'll see you there, my friend.
All right, moving on to more fantasy nonsense survivors in our league. Of course, 3 strikes. If anybody's out there that's still alive, and I'm sure there's a couple people in our league with a strike or two left. Last week's most popular correct pick was.
The Kansas City Chiefs. I was on those Chiefs to
Whew,
beat the Panthers. It took a scramble from Mahomes with about 30 yards and 30 seconds left in that game to get it. Dave, what was the defensive end thinking? Have we seen this a million times?
did he
It's
pump
like
fake him?
he didn't even pump fake. He just ran right past him. He didn't keep his contain, and
Yeah,
Mahomes just took it right up the sideline. We've seen it so many times.
yeah.
It's amazing that it still happens, but Mahomes and led 26% of the nation to survive at least one more week.
Oh, that would have been glorious. if it would have gone the other way. Okay, last week's most popular incorrect pick.
Yeah, they were making snow angels. The Pittsburgh Steelers were unable to beat the Cleveland Browns in a game that the Steelers really needed to stay on top of that division. But the Brownies get it done. They take down almost 14% of the country. And I don't know if you saw any of the mic'd up audio coming out of this game, but Jameis Winston is completely awesome. His energy is infectious, and it's no wonder that the Brownies found a way to win this. And Dave, not to seg here, but to get off track, but we've often talked about shitty field conditions ruining a football game.
Yeah,
This game, the snowfall, it was so cinematic. I loved every second of it.
yeah,
I would be bummed out if we never saw a snow game in the NFL again. It was just so cool. I know it's tricky and it adds to it, and these are, the top notch athletes, but that thing was beautiful to watch. It was so
yeah.
fun, and it kind of, inspires that kid in you that grew up loving football. It was awesome to watch.
It was pretty scenic indeed.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, more and more of these teams opting for the domed stadiums, which, much more comfortable for the fans
Yeah.
and for the players. But yeah, you lose that element there. Casey, moving into next week, what's the most popular pick that's heading into next week?
If you still got them, baby, it's the Detroit Rock City Lions playing on a short week, taking on those Chicago Bears. Dude, it's 40, almost 45% of the people going with it. If you save Detroit for this late in the season and you're still
Wow.
alive,
Good for you.
congratulations.
Yeah,
Wow.
good for you. All right, Casey, none of that nonsense. Let's get it going. Let's get things going with the real action. Let's get on to the game previews for the NFL. It is week 13.
Wait,
Week, yeah, 13.
what?
Yeah, week 13 coming right up. Week 13.
Week 13.
That is correct, sir. Week 13.
It's slipping away.
It's slipping away. It's
Dude, you used to trace your hand to make the turkey. We can't even do that. There's only 4 weeks left after this.
oh, good lord, is that right? Holy crap! All right,
Fucking
we're gonna have to soak it in while we still can. This one is a Thanksgiving Day uh, doozy. Well, no, no. All right, it's a pretty good Thanksgiving slate for us. It's not totally awesome, but there's some good action in there. What do we got to start with?
We're going to kick it off. You know where we're going. It's going to Detroit, restore the roar, babies. Those Chicago Bears at the Detroit Lions, and the Lions are 10.5 point favorites in this game.
Yeah, I'll start off with the Bears. They are 4-7. They lost a close one to Minnesota that they had tied up and got it into overtime, only to lose by a field goal in that one. The Bears have actually now lost 5 in a row and have a tough stretch of games left to play, including San Francisco, Minnesota, Detroit again, as well as Seattle and Green Bay. So could be a total tailspin for the Bears ending this season, but they have been playing entertaining football. Um, and hopefully they'll play well enough to make this one a fun game. Year one with Caleb has had its ups and downs. Last week he threw it 47 times, which is a bad,
Ugh.
bad number. 340 yards though and 2 touchdowns. So maybe a good draft class next year, and these guys will really be ready to compete in that very tough division. Lions, on the other hand, on top of that same tough division, 10-1. They're ready to contend now, that's for sure. And they have not lost since week 2. They handled the Colts last week. And 3.5 years into Dan Campbell, Casey, I mean, I got to tell you, from where he started with that press conference to where this team is right now and what he's been able to do and mold them in his image there, they are one of the most exciting and well-rounded teams in the league. In fact, the offense is second in yards, number 1 in points at 32.7, defense 11th in yards, and second in points at 16.6. So really strong there. Couple of guys out for this one. Offensive lineman Taylor Decker, cornerback Carlton Davis, but David Montgomery and Amon Ross St. Brown, who are both questionable, have practiced this week a little bit. So hopefully they're going to be good to go in this game.
Yeah, Lions can't mess around. I don't think they will. We've talked
Yeah.
about this. Dan Campbell wants to punish teams. A
Yep.
poor Bears team is coming to town. Punish them, get home, eat some turkey, and
Mm-hmm.
then watch football for the rest of the day. You mentioned it, Dan Campbell, man. I love what's going on in
Yeah.
Detroit.
No doubt. And he's the kind of guy that's going to basically say, hey, this isn't Thanksgiving until we finish these guys off and
Yep.
bury them. All
Mhm.
right, moving along. Casey, it is the New York Giants at your Dallas Cowboys. And this one's all you.
Yeah, Davey. The New York Giants, we thought we were going to get Tommy Cutlets, but it turns out he's got that sore forearm. No problem. We get the pop and lock of Drew Lock. Going to get that start there. Coming off a short week, he's a little bit disgruntled because he got hopped over in that quarterback exchange. Well, he just got the jump back up. So he's going to get to see what he can do. This is the second game between the Giants and the Cowboys, but a lot of disgruntledness coming out of that Giants locker room, the way they've handled stuff. And some of these vets, they were already pissed off that Dimebag wasn't the starter. And now that he's gone, I don't know that we're going to get the full effort out of those guys, but, we'll see what happens with that. But the Cowboys, on the other hand, they end a 5-game losing streak at the, going on the road there at the Durs in a crazy,
Oh,
crazy game, 3-3 at halftime. 10-9 going into the third quarter, and then to the 34-26 or whatever the hell it was. Cowboys with 2 different kickoff returns for touchdown, including Turpin hitting that sweet ass spin
spin
move
move.
right there, and starting to get a little bit healthier. Micah's obviously coming back. Deron Bland's been back. Marshawn Nealon, the high draft pick early on. We're starting to see these guys. The depth took a big shot with the guys that left in free agency, and then all the injuries, starting to get a little bit healthier, starting to implement a little of the Mike Zimmer defense. Hopefully that can keep that going. And then on the other side, the improvement of the offensive line, working in 2 rookies. We're starting to
Mm-hmm.
see them. They were actually giving Cooper Rush time to throw back there, which was really helping. And that also opened up the run game a little bit. Rico Dowdle around 90 yards. So starting to see some progress here. You got part of the Cowboy fandom rooting for the tank. The players are saying, to hell with that. We're going to go out and play some football. Cowboys get this win. They've got a stretch of winnable games. I'm not saying they're going to get back in. I'm not even saying they're going to win this game, but stranger stuff has definitely happened in the NFL. So it should be a fun one to watch. I'm feeling better about it than I did a couple weeks ago.
And feeling pretty good about that vote of confidence from Jera for Mike McCarthy.
That is usually the kiss of death. We have
Right?
full confidence in our coach, So it was a weird situation for Big Mike to get into. They didn't do a lot in the offseason, didn't bring in a lot of
Yeah.
bodies,
That
and
was
lost
all
a lot
in.
of key contributors. So
Yeah.
can't put it all on him. And as banged up as his team has been,
Yep.
um, it's
That's what
it's
I
a
say.
tough sell.
12 wins in a row, 3 years in a row. That is, um, you can, and now you don't got Dak. So there's a lot of mitigating circumstances here.
Yeah. And then we got the nightcap. This should be pretty good. We got the Miami Dolphins at the Green Bay Packers. And go ahead and start talking about those Dolphins, and let me see how cold it's going to be for this game while you start talking about the
All
fans.
right, let me get it going with this Dolphins fan that team here that has got me pretty excited or nervous actually because they are really playing better and better since they got Tua back 4 weeks ago. They lost 4 of the 5 games that he wasn't there, but now that he's back, they are a different team. They've won
Mhm.
3 straight games, beating the Rams, Raiders, and then last week the Patriots to improve their record to 5. I mean, they were dead in the water there at 2-6, but now they're 5-6 and sneaking up on a possible wild card berth through the Tua, his second game in a row that he was really good in. This one, 317 yards and 4 touchdowns, so he was fantastic. Waddle, 144 yards and a touchdown here in this game. So they are still 4 games back of Buffalo in the AFC. So not happening there, but they are still alive for that wild card spot, and they've got some winnable games coming up. Let's take a look. They play the Jets twice. Houston, who's beatable, right?
Mhm.
And then San Francisco, struggling, and Cleveland. So, I mean, run the table there, and they're in business.
Yeah, but bad news for those Dolphins. It's going to be 32 degrees
Uh
of a
oh.
high there. So I don't know if the sun's going to be out, but it is going to be pretty chilly there. So as that tundra moves into frozen, these Green Bay Packers are starting to heat up. Jordan Love had a really nice game against the Niners. They win that game 38-10 there. And
Wow.
Love was pretty good. Didn't do a lot. 13 to 23, 163 yards, 2 touchdowns, QBR of 107.7. But Josh Jacobs, dude, doing work in this game. 26 carries, 106 yards, 3 touchdowns. And that Green Bay defense is actually really solid too. They're
Yeah.
creating a bunch of turnovers there. And they are going to be right in this mix. But, dude, you mentioned schedules down the stretch. It's a little bit brutal for these pack. They have the Dolphins this week, at Detroit next week, at
Uh-oh.
Seattle after that, hosting the Saints, at Minnesota, then hosting the Bears. So they've got wiggle room there, but those are tough, tough games with other teams competing for playoff spots,
Yeah.
specifically in their own division. So lots to still be told on this story moving forward. But when Love doesn't turn the ball over and they run like that and their defense turns it over, that's a formula for winning playoff football, dude.
Yeah. And Dolphins don't like the cold.
They do not.
All
Freezes up
right.
those little fins.
That's right. Moving on to Black Friday, Casey. They've given us
Oh,
another
yeah.
Black Friday.
Yeah, this is a rematch of last year's Friday where Black Friday, where the Las Vegas Raiders actually beat the Chiefs last year. This is the Raiders at the Chiefs, though. These Chiefs are 13-point favorites. This is a different game, though.
Yeah, it is. These Raiders are 2-9. They've lost 7 in a row. Yeah,
Ooh.
you heard me right. 7 in a row. And I'm sure GM Tom Telesco and owner Mark Davis would probably like to lose all the remaining games to secure
Mhm.
that high drift. You mentioned it before uh, uh, when we were talking Raider talk, but that way they can land their QB of the future. Who's obviously not on the roster. Will there be a new head coach also, or Pierce? Will he survive? They're currently second in the draft right now behind none other than the QB needy New York Giants.
Uh-oh.
So a lot to be determined there, whether they get to pick their quarterback or have to take the second one on the that comes off the board. Chiefs, on the other hand, 10-1, but they find themselves in close games every week, it seems. Last week they were tied with the 3-win Panthers with under 2 minutes left. And of course, Mahomes did throw 3 touchdowns in that game, and a late game. You mentioned it, 34-yard scramble set up the Chiefs' game-winning field goal there. They currently have the top seed and the bye, but Buffalo's just a game back with the tiebreaker. So every game that they noodle around in and end up maybe finding a way to lose one of these could cost them significantly in the playoffs down the road. Um, the defense for the Chiefs, though, always seems to keep them in there.
Mhm.
They're fourth in yards, ninth in points, with just 19.8 points per game. So Chiefs up next for the Chiefs. Well, good news, all those guys are getting healthy too. It's the Chargers after this, and then they have the Cleveland, Houston, Pittsburgh, and Denver. So some tough games there for the Chiefs. If they obviously don't play their best, they're going to lose a game or two along the way there.
Yeah, and everybody's talking about winning these games by a score or less is a bad thing for them. I actually think it's the other way around.
Yeah,
They're not
they
freaking
find a
out by
way.
a close game. Yeah, it's like if
Mhm.
it's with one score, we're gonna make sure we get it done.
Yeah, they're
So
very confident in those games, obviously.
yeah, and they've
But
got
the
the track
buy is
record to
super
prove it.
important. You know the record for Randy Reid
Oh
off
yeah,
of a
coming
buy.
off a
So
bye.
if he
Yep.
can get that buy, that's a big difference in versus conceivably going to Buffalo and playing that AFC Championship game there or in Baltimore.
Oh, so we got some Thursday football, we got some Friday football,
Woo!
college football on Saturday. Now we're back to Sunday, baby. Get it started.
Yeah. How about Arizona Cardinals at the Minnesota Vikings? Vikings at home, favored by 4.
Dude, I told you these Cardinals, every time I buy
Fight.
in, they lose. And
Yeah.
I want to believe in these guys. And they went out and they just got out physicaled in Seattle. And it was really a good game, but they just couldn't get it going on offense. Kyler with a costly interception, but they could not run the ball at all. That
Yeah.
Seattle defense was looking stout. That being said, they're going to be right in the thick of things in that West. It's such a tight
So
division
close. Yeah.
that a team, even the Niners could end up winning this stupid thing if they can get healthy down the stretch. But there is a lot to like about these Cardinals. They just
Mhm.
got to figure out a way to be more consistent there. And then down the stretch, dude, their schedule is pretty favorable. If they can figure out a way to go on the road and get this win against the Vikings, they get to host the Seahawks, host the Patriots, go to Carolina, and then 2 more divisional games to finish out at the Rams, then host the Niners. So um, this thing will likely come down to the last couple of weeks of the season, this division. And
Ridiculously
yeah,
tight.
one of these four teams is going to get into the playoffs, maybe two, but
Uh,
I don't know. But the Cardinals, when Kyler's on his game, are great. He just wasn't on it last week. So
Yeah, and when we were talking about this game last week, previewing the Cardinals Seahawks game, we talked about running the ball with the physical nature of their run game. That didn't come through. And the
no.
wild card that is Kyler Murray and the bad Kyler came through. Remember, it was a pick six that really kind of sealed the fate in this game to Kobe Bryant. Working that Mamba
Yeah.
mentality, getting that pick six, that kind of just put it out of reach there. But yeah, Cardinals, um, they
You
are definitely a feisty team there. But let me talk Vikings real quick. They are 9-2 after beating the Bears last week in overtime. Darnold threw for 330 and 2 touchdowns, and they were trying to take away Jefferson. They were pretty good at taking away Jefferson. That left Jordan Addison to feast for 162 and a touchdown. Hawkinson, since he's been back, has been enormous. He had 114 yards last week. He seems to be an awesome playmaker over the middle of the field there. Aaron Jones ran for over 100 yards in a TD. So they are clicking there offensively. The Minnesota defense, 10th in yards. They like to confuse the other team. They're number one versus the run. They're fifth in points given up at 17.9, but they are near the bottom of the league in pass defense. So we'll see if that can take effect in this game against the Cardinals. Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, some of the players they're bringing to the equation. Although they are fourth in the league, the Vikings are with 38 sacks. So, but they got to be careful getting after Kyler because that guy can make you pay if you overcommit to the pass rush.
Yeah, and back to that Cardinals offense, James Conner has to have more than 7 carries if they expect to win in Minnesota. So it's a big time game for both of these teams to stay in that playoff mix. All right, Dave. Speaking of a big time game for teams to stay in the playoff mix, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cincinnati Bengals. And the 4-7 Bengals are 2.5 point favorites in this game against the 8-3 Steelers. All right.
Yeah, and 8-3 still has them on top of the division by a half game to the Baltimore Ravens, and they beat the Baltimore Ravens earlier, 2 weeks ago. So that was an enormous win. That the loss last week though in the blizzard that broke a 5-game winning streak, and so that one really did hurt. And as we look at their future schedule, which I will do towards the end here, it could be very pivotal losing that game to the Browns. But they are still in the lead in the division. They hold the tiebreaker currently. Pittsburgh's defense ninth in yards, seventh versus both the rush and in points per game at under 17 points a game. They are second in the league with 22 takeaways on defense, too, with a turnover ratio of plus 13. So they take care of the football, and their defense goes and gets it. But here's their next a handful of weeks. It's Cleveland again, obviously, who we know can beat them. Unlikely they'll sweep them, but who knows? After that, Philly, Baltimore, Kansas City, and Cincinnati. That is a brutal stretch. So
That is
drop
brutal.
any of those, especially the Baltimore one, and they'll find themselves falling back into a wild card spot instead of hosting a playoff game in the first round there.
Yeah, you talk about brutal losses. These Bengals know all about that. Two,
Woo,
2 weeks
sure do.
ago, before the bye, losing to our Chargers 34-27. The week before that, losing to the Ravens 35-34. They did get blowed out by the Eagles, but their other loss to Baltimore 41-38. Lost to the Durs 38-33. Lost to the Chiefs 26-25. Lost to the Patriots 16-10. That's why
Wow.
uh, their coach could be on the hot seat in close games. They're not getting it done. There is way too much talent on this damn team for them to not win some of these football games. And it's usually a comedy of errors. They're not dead yet, but Dave, they are on the outskirts, which is a shame because this is the number one ranked pass offense in the NFL. They host the Steelers this week, at my Cowboys the following week. And after this Steelers game, I said Cowboys, Titans, hosting the Browns, hosting the Broncos, then at Pittsburgh. So very little wiggle room. I don't know
Yeah.
if there's another a room for another loss on it.
Right.
So if they beat these Steelers, they kind of stay alive. But if they lose this, dude, I gotta think that's a wrap on these Bengals. And then you have to look at everything besides Shiesty, and Jamar still doesn't have his monies.
Yeah. No kidding. Yeah. And they're going to lose Higgins. And, I mean, So let's be honest there. That this is the best team they'll feel. Who knows? Obviously some tweaks in the offseason, but whew,
Mhm.
yeah, it's been a disappointing season, like you said. That seems like the story of the Chargers you were talking about. How you find a way to go like 1-7 in super ass close games, and somehow you just squander them away. You can't seem to
Ugh,
finish.
brutal.
All right, up next. It is the Houston Texans at the Jacksonville Jaguars, Casey. And yeah, what can I say? Texans on the road favored by just 5.5.
Dude, and Texans lose a game at home that they had no business losing last week. We talked about it. You can't lose the games. I know it's the NFL and stuff happens, but when
Yeah.
you're trying to win that division and potentially have a playoff game at home in the second round, too, you can't go losing to the Titans who are
Yeah.
just playing, to get the season out, playing for the coach, whatever. But
Hey, they
just
said they're not out of it. That's what the coach said. I think today at some point. But hey, they're whatever. If they're still believing, good for them. But the rest of us are a little not so convinced.
Yeah, and dude, and everybody wanted to crown these Texans as the next coming
Totally
after last year, but
right.
shockingly, dude, Joe Mixon only 22 yards on 14 carries. Now that is a good Titans defense, but
Yeah, it is.
you got to have more than 2 yards per carry. Stroud with 2 interceptions, very costly there. Fairburn with the missed field goal that would have set that game into overtime. So all fixable things for these Texans going on the road to play a 2-9 Jags team that is completely utterly disappointing. I'm not sure if T Law's back in this one or still going to be Mac Jones, but
Yeah.
dude, these Texans cannot drop back-to-back divisional games to teams that have no business beating them. I expect a big bounce back from them this week, but they've got to play better football because we're running out of regular season here. And you can't be dropping these games early on. You think about it late in the season, just can't do it.
Yeah, it's 7-5. And here's the thing: they have a two-game lead in the division over Indy, and they swept Indy. So there is margin for error. But the way they're playing, it looks like they're going to win the division and just lose in the first round of the playoffs. I mean, you got to peak at the right time, and
Yeah.
maybe they're in a valley right now, so they got to head towards the peak.
And then they could be hosting a team like the Chargers, the Steelers,
Yeah,
or the Ravens. I mean, it's not going to be an easy out for those guys, so they better get their shit together sooner than later.
yeah, no doubt.
All right, Dave. Up next, it is the Seattle Seahawks at the New York Jets, and the Hawks are 1.5-point favorites on the road.
Yeah, the Seahawks, as I mentioned, got that big divisional win last week, beating the Cardinals. That left both of those squads 6-5, but the Seahawks hold the tiebreaker for now. It was a huge pick six, as I mentioned, that got their game last week against Kyler Murray, and it was a 69-yard return for a touchdown for the Seahawks squad. Both of these teams are just a game ahead of the other two teams in the division. That is to say, Seattle and um, Arizona. So that division, I mean, is so crazy tight. One
Mhm.
game separates first from last. So week to week league, yeah, I'll tell you what. But the Seahawks and the Cardinals, they are going to play again um, next week. So I mean, it's crazy. But this game has got to be a W for this Seahawks squad. They can, like we said, you got to win the ones you're supposed to win. And this
Mhm.
Jets team is in disarray at 3-8. It's fair to say the Aaron Rodgers era has been a disaster at this point. Last week was their bye, but prior to that, it was a 1-point loss to the Colts. And the Jets defense gave up a TD run to Anthony Richardson in the last minute of that
Ugh.
game to lose that one. They've lost 7 of 8 of the last games. So they'd be better off losing the rest of them, get a high pick for the incoming regime, because clearly they look to be cleaning house there already. GM gone, coach gone, probably a new quarterback in there with the new regime. So yeah, this Jets experiment with their Aaron Rodgers has not worked.
Yeah, and then maybe at some point we get to see what Jordan Travis, the rookie, if he's healthy and available, maybe he gets a start one or two to end the season to kind of know
Yeah,
what direction they need to take
that's
and
a good
if they
point.
even want Rodgers back next year.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Up next, it is the Indianapolis Colts at the New England Patriots. Um, the Colts are on the road, but favored by 2.5.
Dude, I love this. Peyton Manning versus Tom Brady. One of the greatest game. Oh, wait.
no,
No,
that's not
no,
the
that
case.
is not this. But both of these teams do have who they think is their franchise quarterback in place here. And you mentioned these Colts. They don't do anything great, but they play hard. They've got a great coach and they continue to fight. And that's done pretty well for them. They did get blowed up by the Detroit Lions last week, but who hasn't gotten their ass kicked by the Lions this season? So they get this game. They go on the road to play the New England Patriots. If they can figure out a win, they go into the bye week, and then they can set up for a pretty doable stretch, dude. They have the bye next week. After that, it's at Denver. It's going to be tough. But then it's Tennessee at the Giants at Jacksonville. If they can just get this game, move to 6-7, they're going to have a chance to finish this thing the right way. And now these Patriots, they're dead in the water, but that's what we expected. But we feel pretty good about what we've seen so far out of Drake May.
Hmm.
Continues to make a
Yeah.
little progress with Mayo there. They're just going to find the dudes that he can mold into what he wants him to be. And the other guys, they're going to be gone. This is a 2 or 3 year process. They got to get some talent around May. They have Ramondre Stevenson's obviously a great running back, but they need more there, especially at the wide receiver position. So this is a team that is in transition. We got to be patient with them, but this is an important game for the Colts.
Yeah, I feel like that Colts team at 5-7, we're overlooking the fact them and the Dolphins are kind of clawing their way back
Mhm.
into the mix there. And it's going to be kind of tight here and nerve wracking for the AFC playoff wild card run there.
Yeah. All right. Up next, Dave, it's the Tennessee Titans at the Washington Commanders, and those Durs are 5.5 point favorites.
Yeah, Titans 3-8. They seem to follow the same script every week with Will Levis playing fairly well, but delivering a gift wrap turnover to to the other team to lose the football game. Last week in Houston, it was a Levis 65-yard pick six at the end of the third quarter to give the lead to the Texans. But then came the plot twist. Levis threw a 70-yard TD pass, and then the Titans defense forced Texans QB CGA Stroud into giving up a late safety. They just pressured him. He ran right out of the Orlovsky'd it, right? So Tennessee got the win. Pretty impressive. Commanders dropped to 7-5, losing that game to the Cowboys. But that was a big loss for them. We talked about the crazy finish, man. It looked like they were going to get that thing to overtime. Then their kicker Seibert misses the extra point that would have tied it. Then the Cowboys smear their face and run the next kick back. That was pretty exciting finish there. But you know what? The picture is that that's now 3 losses in a row for this Redskins. Commanders squad, right? They're just letting games go that they really can't afford to. It seemed like this team was clicking, and now 3 losses in a row. They're not clicking. Up next is their bye. Then they have the Saints, the Eagles, the Falcons, and then your boys again to finish the season. So some winnable games there, but they got to find a way to get those wins and then maybe steal a game. And who knows where they could end up.
Yeah, and don't forget that Hail Mary against the Bears. They could easily be sitting at 6-6. The vibes would be already where they're kind of trending to.
Yeah, like what's
But
going on?
yeah, and so damn beat up at running back. We don't know what's up with Eckler or Robinson, so it could be Christy McNichols on Sunday. I
Nice.
can't remember what their TV show was, but we
Ancient
just
reference. Yeah.
yeah. Someone out there is digging it. So
Oh, man.
hopefully. Anyways. All right. Speaking of digging it, baby, it's our Los Angeles Chargers at the hot Atlanta Falcons, and our Chargers are 1.5 favorites on the road, Dave.
Yeah, the Chargers dropped to 7-4, losing to the Ravens on Monday Night Football. Most of us, of course, watched that game. Bolt's defense, which has been solid all year, was bullied and out physicaled by the Ravens O line, and Derrick Henry ran all over them to the tune of 140 yards. Justice Hill also had a huge TD run in that one as well. But here's my little Charger goggles thing, there were a couple of key pass interference calls on Baltimore that were negated. One was a bogus holding call that offset the PI that would have had us around their 30 when we were trailing by one score, right, in the third quarter there. And then another one would have had us first and goal at the 5. They just picked up the penalty. No explanation. There was no pass interference. That's what they said. I'm not really sure how that happened. The judge that was further away negated the judge that was within range. But again, Chargers down by only 7 could have conceivably tied the game, but those ultimately both those drives resulted in punts, and we went down by 14, and the game kind of slipped away. Chargers started that game running the ball with J.K. Dobbins really well. I think he was averaging 6.5 plus yards a carry, and that Ravens defensive front is very good. But once he went down, they only ran the ball 10 more times, and it was for 14 yards total between the other two backs. So without Dobbins, they were unable to run at all. And suddenly the Chargers are just passing, and the Ravens defense is licking their chops. And the big bummer was drops. I mean, Herbert threw the ball very well. At least 5 drops in this game, just straight up drops, and Quentin Johnston with 3 of them that really cost this team a chance to be in that football game late. Um, you know, um, they they have got to get their the minds right. Going into this game, they're on a short week. The Falcons are coming off their bye. Thank you, NFL scheduler, and we're playing at 10 a.m.
And
Another
it's all the way across the country. But
right.
other than that,
Okay. So, and this Falcons team obviously needs a win too, really badly. But up next for the Chargers after this, as if we can't, if we drop this one, then suddenly, oh shit, the everything's falling apart here, because afterwards it's Kansas City,
ugh,
Tampa Bay,
ugh.
Denver, before it eases up a little bit at the end, New England and Las Vegas. We got to find a way to win this game, because down the road we do not want to be having to win every single game in order to find that wild card spot.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. These Falcons look like they were trending in the right direction, but they've dropped 3 of their last 5, including 2 in a row before they went on their bye.
Yeah.
And in their last game against the Broncos, they got the crap kick out of them 38-6. So that bye coming at a pretty good time for them. But you mentioned they got to start getting their stuff together, because the Bucks are starting to get a little healthier. Now they did sweep the Bucks, but the schedule coming up after your Chargers, they're at the Vikings, but then they go to the Raiders, host the Giants, couple dubs at the Durs, and then they host the Panthers. So very
Wow.
favorable for them. They did a
Yeah.
lot of work early. Maybe that buys them some time later in the season. So we don't know though what's going to happen with these guys. Like I said, 2 losses in a row into the bye week. Now you got an angry Chargers team coming to town. So we need
Hmm.
to find out what these Falcons are made of, and that's going to be a pretty tricky game to do so in.
Yeah. A couple of key stats that I found about the Falcons. They only have 10 sacks as a team on the
Yeah,
season.
and I
Remarkable. That's last in the league. Also, last in the league, giving up 71.6% completions to opposing quarterbacks.
oh,
Man, we
I
should light it up with Herbert.
oh yeah, and I think about 4 of those sacks came against the Cowboys. So
Wow. All right, moving along to the late session of games, Casey. The Los Angeles Rams, our Los Angeles Rams, who have been
oh.
playing some good football, are at the New Orleans Saints. The Rams on the road are favored by 2.5. Talk about this
Oh,
football
dude,
game.
Kamara's got to be licking his chops after what he saw Saquon do to
Oh
our
yeah,
Rams on Sunday night, dude. Saquon burning these guys for 250 plus yards, and
brutal.
most of that damage came in the second half. It was a pretty heads up game at halftime, and then they just completely lost it in the second half. There's still lots of weapons, still such a dangerous team. These Rams are. They just have to figure it out on defense a little bit. Got to get Kieran Williams going a little bit more. Only
Yeah,
72 yards last week. Puka, dude, one of my favorite players in the league. This guy is a stud. He's so strong. He catches everything. He had 9 for 117 last week. Cooper Cup, 8 grabs, but only 60 yards. He did have a touchdown, but you want to see a little more run after the catch. That's what made this guy so deadly in seasons past. So a few years ago, this was the game, NFC Championship, the uncalled pass interference where the Rams defender absolutely knocked
oh yeah.
out the Saints. It should have been lights out. Instead, the Rams benefit from that non-call and they head on to the Super Bowl. So not quite as much on the line here, but the Rams need to sort it out and try to get a win. They have dreams of contending in that NFC West, but at 5-6 and third in that division, winning that might be their only way to get in, and they're running out of opportunities to do so.
Yep, no doubt about it. Yeah, that
And
division is wide open, but who
yeah,
knows?
and then the Saints, they've already fired their coach. They got a couple good wins. They're coming off their bye. Maybe they can get a little bit healthy. They've been all kinds of banged up at receiver too. Got some aging superstars on the defensive side of the ball. But 4-7, they're not dead yet either. But they've got a lot of work to do if they think they're going to get back in it as well.
Yep, it's definitely a game that both of these teams have got to win if they want to be in contention.
All right, up next we have the Tampa Bay Bucks at the Carolina Panthers. The Bucks are 6-point favorites.
Yeah, and the Bucks improved to 5-6 last week, making mincemeat out of Tommy Cutlets and the
Oh,
Giants.
I like that.
Yeah, that
He's
snapped a
got it.
four
These
game
kids still got it.
snapped a 4-game losing streak. Mayfield efficient with 24 of 30, 294, hitting 11 different receivers, and a 29-yard run for a TD was also a good game for Bucky Irvin, who had 87 yards and a touchdown and a 7.3-yard average per
Wow.
carry. He tacked on 64 more yards receiving, so really nice. And then getting back Mike Evans is so big because it gives them that another playmaker that they were lacking there for a month or so. Tampa Bay has got to stack wins to make the playoff push. They're just a game behind Atlanta, but we mentioned they they're in trouble with the
Yeah, they've been swept by
swept
those
by Atlanta.
stupid
Right. Excuse me.
Falcons.
Thank you. Up next, though, Las Vegas, then the Chargers, then Dallas, Carolina, and New Orleans. Some winnable games there for the Bucks. If they win the ones they're going to be favored in, they'll find themselves hanging around and they'll have a chance there. Panthers 3-8. They lost to the Chiefs last week, but played a good game. They were tied with the two-time champs with under 2 minutes to go. I'm sure that Panther fan was very happy with the way they were performing there. They had won 2 in a row before that. So they're playing better football. What is more important though right now, a win for Carolina or a loss? Really, honestly, they need more pieces around, to put this team together and build. Currently, they draft 5th right now.
Man, that is yeah, these Bucks, man, they could be a little bit better than their record states. You know, they've had some lost both of those Falcons games came down to the last
Close.
possession, but
Yep.
I love what Baker's doing. You
Hmm.
mentioned Bucky Irvin and healthy Mike Evans. Let's see if they can compete. Go out and smash a Panthers team that is starting to play a little bit better though.
Yeah. Okay. Up next, the Eagles at 9-2 are at the Baltimore Ravens 8-4. This is a big game, and the Ravens are at home, favored by 2.5. Two of the physical teams with great running backs right now, playing great football. Woo! This a Super Bowl preview?
Yeah, it's a bird battle, so maybe it is, dude. And you mentioned great football, dude. It's been a while since we've had a running back be in the MVP chatter, but that's exactly what Saquon Barkley's doing, dude. We thought the highlight of the season would be that reverse 180
Yeah,
hurdle over the
leap.
defender.
Yeah.
No,
Woo!
dude. 26, 255 last week, 9.8 a carry, dude. Ran all over those freaking Rams. And he's given so much life to the offense, taken so much of the pressure off of Jalen Hurts. Now, with teams having to focus so much on that run game, it's really opened up what Jalen can do. And
Yeah.
AJ Brown is absolute stud. He had 6 for 109 last week. They do the tush push. Nobody can stop that. Nobody can stop Saquon. That defense is starting to get a little bit better. And you mentioned, dude, these Eagles are at 9-2. They're in the mix to get home field advantage throughout the playoffs in the NFC, dude. I'm not sure that if they don't lose this Ravens game, they host Carolina, they host the Steelers at the Durs, host the Cowboys, then host the Giants, dude. That might be the easiest schedule down the stretch by a team that's already winning 7 in a row. Can
Yeah.
the Ravens end that?
Yeah, they are obviously going to be favored in a lot of those games. How about these Ravens, though? Um, they're playing some good football too. It seems like there are 4 losses. all could have been wins too. They sort of let those games slip away. When they play their football, they just seem to be unstoppable. They beat the Chargers last week. That gives them the secure hold on that top wild card spot, really. And just a half game back of Pittsburgh in the division. It was a huge game for King Henry, as we mentioned, 140 yards. Lamar efficient for 177 and 2 touchdowns, running for another TD. Lamar, and then Justice Hill added the 51-yard score for good measure there. But Baltimore impressive defensively too. They really did shut down the Chargers' running game after the first quarter. Is almost non-existent there. That front, uh, is really really good, even though their secondary is suspect. And has poorly ranked most of the season, but they are 31st actually, but second versus the run. They are third in the league in sacks with 39 though. So this Baltimore defense can really get after the quarterback, and they're going to need that good run defense, obviously, to slow down Saquon in this one. So some winnable games coming up for this Ravens squad. After this, it's the bye, a nice late bye for them, especially when you're winning football, right? Then after that, it's the Giants, Pittsburgh, Houston, and Cleveland. So definitely some winnable games. That Pittsburgh game is basically feels like it's going to be for the division. That's in a couple of weeks down the road there. But this Philly team, though, means business, dude. Number one in defense, yards given up. Sixth in points for that Philly defense, just over 18 points a game. They're third versus the pass, seventh versus the game, and eighth in sacks. So Philly defense, man, this is going to be a physical battle, dude, between these two teams.
Big time. All right, Sunday night. This looked like it was pretty sexy when the schedule came out. It's the San Francisco 49ers at the Buffalo Bills, and the Bills are 7-point favorites.
Yeah, the Niners dropped to 5-6 last week, losing their starting quarterback Brock Purdy with that injured shoulder. His status for this game still unknown. Obviously, it's a huge difference between him and Brandon Allen, at the helm there. So Allen was not great, and the 49ers got almost no help from the running game. They got just 44 yards total rushing the football, averaging under 3 yards a carry there too. So the NFC West, though, the good news is they're only one game back out of first place there. So they certainly have an opportunity up next: Chicago, then the Rams, then Miami, Detroit, and Arizona. So not a cakewalk in there. So they've got to get healthy, and they just haven't put it all together. Seems like they can't play a complete football game, and the injuries have been really dogging them the whole year.
Yeah, and these Bills, they're coming off a bye week. Josh Allen maybe playing his best football, have a huge lead in that division. They can pretty much get a
Yeah,
lock up a playoff spot here pretty soon. They've won 6 in a row but the great in 2 weeks, dude, we get to see them at Detroit, potential Super Bowl preview. But
beautiful.
other than that, they're trying to keep pace with the Chiefs. They did beat them head to head, but still a loss behind them. So everything is going according to plan for these Bills. They just have to figure out a way to get a little bit healthier. Josh Allen, MVP type stuff. Cooks is adding a new element to this offense that they really didn't have. Can they get Keon Coleman healthy, and can they get Amari Cooper and Dalton Kincaid healthy? If all these guys start rounding in the form, man, these Bills are going to be something very hard to handle, man. And they should probably be able to overwhelm these Niners on Sunday night.
Yeah, they should, and they are seriously contenders for that number one seed and the bye, because, like you said, if they can kind of round into shape here, they basically have some winnable games, and they just need to get one more win than the Chiefs, and it'd be a big difference in their potential playoff reality as it unfolds. Okay, Lou, let's move it along to Monday Night Football. It is the Cleveland Browns at the Denver Broncos, and the Broncos are favored by 5.5.
Lots of orange in this game, Dave. Too
Too
much for my
much.
liking, but
Too much.
let's go ahead and start with these Browns coming off their best win of the season, beating the Pittsburgh Steelers on Thursday night. So they kind of get, go from Thursday to Monday night, get a little extended baby bye week in there. But you can't not love Jameis Winston,
Yeah.
man. He is so much fun to root for. And how differently do we feel about these Browns with Jameis at the helm than we
Yep.
do with Deshaun at the helm? It's infectious. You saw that crowd stay in that stadium late in the night with the snow coming down all the way to the end. They were rewarded with a huge win, huge effort. Jameis going airborne to get that touchdown, then the pass to Njoku to get the 2-pointer. So the Brownies at 3-8, probably just playing spoiler at
Yeah.
this point here. But these Denver Broncos right now are sitting in the 7th seed. Bo Nix is playing better football than anybody could have imagined at this point, except maybe Sean Payton there. I love that Broncos defense. I love what Nick Bonito's doing. I think he's second in the league in sacks there.
Wow.
Bo Nix, when he takes care of the ball, good things happen for these Broncos. Coming off the after this Cleveland game, they had the bye week, and then Indy at our Chargers, at the Bengals, and then the Chiefs. So that is a very tough stretch. So they're going to have to be playing their best football down the stretch. But man, get this win versus Cleveland at home, Monday Night Football, go into that bye week and then recharge and have a plan moving forward. But stuff seems to be a little ahead of plan for these Broncos at this moment.
Yeah, I mean, Bo Nix is knocking on the door of that rookie of the year discussion. So it looked like we were handing that thing over to Jaden Daniels, but now the way Nix has performed and got this Broncos team playing, and he really Cortland Sutton, and then I think he was a pretty late round draft pick, but Devon Vele has also really emerged as a really nice weapon for these guys. So
Don't forget about my guy Marvin Mims Jr., baby. You got that right.
Mim's the word, right?
That's right.
So yeah, I mean, go Browns. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to snow in Denver this week. It will be chilly, but I don't think it's scheduled to snow.
Yeah, this is an important game for the Broncos. It's been a while since they've had a lot to feel good about, and
Yeah,
you drop this to the Browns, and all that feel good goes meow.
yep, no doubt. So, and it is going to be a tough stretch, as you mentioned, for this Broncos squad
Very
to
tough.
put together that playoff run for wild card in all likelihood. All right, folks, that is it. Man, this week is going to be good. So many ways to check out the Football Dudes. Trend Zone available for subscription. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts. So it's all free of charge.
Oh,
Unbelievable.
free. That's great.
Free of charge. Yeah.
And if you're not watching this podcast, head on over to YouTube, search for the Football Dudes. Once you find us, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like us on Instagram and Facebook, and follow us on Twitter, Football Dudes LA, and make sure you tag us across all social media platforms.
Or just go to footballdudes.com. It is all there for you. That is going to do it for this episode of the Trend Zone. Enjoy Thanksgiving, the food, the family, the football, the fun. It's awesome. We're not the suits that talk football. We're the dudes that know football. For Casey, I'm Dave, and we are out of here.